Good afternoon. This is Daniel Mbangula. I'm a tutor of School Leadership and Management A subject, Bachelor of Education Honors Degree SLB. And this is a lessons for all examinations and Bachelor of Education in Senior Primary. My cell phone number is there also, 081 41 61 561, 081 41 61 561. If you have any query, you can contact me during that prescribed time. The items to be discussed in these presentations will look at the common words used in examinations and examination preparation tips, course learning outcomes. Of course, I have to give an excuse there on examples of exam questions. Of course, maybe there I will only give a general comment, but I'm not able to provide a slide now here. But as we continue discussing, you pick up some of the examples that you might need to know for the previous examination questions. Right? The common words used in exam. The following are some of the common words that you will encounter in any examinations. For example, at this level. Describe. This is to provide the detailed features of an issue or stage of process in a logical sequence using numbers and headings and proper sentences. In other words, when you are describing, you are giving a clear description of what is that thing. For example, by looking at the pros and cons of a certain aspect, and the following one, the next one is discuss. These are overlapping terms, of course. Discuss, here you give a clear description and then argue about features by pointing out positive and negative features, arriving at a conclusion. Here you look at both sides, the good side and the bad side. Then the examiner will be clear of what you are trying to discuss. Explain. This is describing something and indicate a relationship between things, making clear the why reasons and the why questions. For example, you give the reasons as to why this thing is happening and how questions, the examples of certain thing and the features. List or state or outline, these are all same terms. Present a list of names, facts, objects, etc. in a certain order. You don't need to go in detail, you just give, then you go. You don't waste time there. Exam preparation. Practice on samples of tests in textbook or study guide. You look at your study, or you look in your study guide. There are certain self-study questions or previous examination questions. Then as you try to read around those textbook or study guide practical questions, they can prepare you to address the examination questions, because some of those questions can even pop up in examination because they are all addressing what you need to know. Asking for suggestions from your tutor. Always make sure that when you have a problem, ask the tutor so that the tutor can tell you what you must emphasize on and where you must touch if you are kind of in a dilemma of what you must do and what you must not do. And you must also always make sure that you leave plenty of time to revise your work. Don't wait until the last time. or last moment. You must read throughout the year before exam starts. When the exam time arrives, you are only revising. Then where you have a problem, if you read on time, you can able to ask the tutor to help you where you are struggling. Every time is a learning time. Don't think when you are going to visit the doctor, you must leave your book. When you are going to the gym, you must leave your book. You read every time. Whatever you are doing, you can be reading. When you are cooking, you are reading. When you are in the office, you do your office work, that 10-minute break you have, or 15-minute break you have, or 1 hour lunch you have, you can also have some 20-minute or 30-minute to read. Plan your study on time. You must plan. Make sure that you have ample time to study, to plan your study as to what time of the day can I study, or when should I start studying. Plan your study time according to prepared time of the day. There's a mistake. It's supposed to be preferred time. Excuse me. It's not prepared, but preferred time of the day, when you can well concentrate. Get accurate information from the study guide, textbook, or from the tutor. Get an understanding of grading procedure. Know what percentage you need to have to qualify you for examination, and what percentage you must get in examination to enable you to pass the examination. Before the exam, make sure you know where it will be held, the starting time, and how long it will last. Because many people have made mistake in this case. They don't know what time the examination is starting, and they will come 10 minutes after examination have started, and you will be confused. Or you don't know where the examination is going to be held, and you'll be knocking door to door, and that will also bring a lot of confusion. You need to acquaint yourself as to how long that examination will be, so that you also prepare your mind that I will be there for 2 hours, I will be there for 1 hour, I will be there for 3 hours. So you'll be able to concentrate, and the starting time is very important. Course learning outcomes. We start with Unit 1. Of course, here we are saying these are certain topics that you must read around, so that any question that come from these topics, you must be able to answer it. In Unit 1, you must read on how can we create a culture of learning and teaching in schools. A question can come, for example, explain how a principal can create a culture of learning and teaching in schools, or a leader of a certain school, or maybe you are appointed as a school principal. How will you create that culture of learning and teaching in your school? Another topic is promoting culture of learning and teaching as a principal or as a leader of an education institution. How can you create that culture of learning and teaching? Because a leader in any organization is the one who creates that atmosphere of good running of a day-to-day activities. So even the school can only have good teaching and learning taking place if you have a good leader. Efficient management of resources to develop school excellence. How do you manage your resources efficiently to develop school of excellence for the school to run effectively? How will you make sure that you ensure resources are managed efficiently so that you are able to run smoothly? In Unit 2, school culture and classroom climate, you must be able to tell the difference between those two and look at their characters that differentiate them. The relationship between school climate and learner achievements. What is that in school that help learners to achieve their day-to-day work. For example, to pass well. How can you create that school climate to make sure that it helps learners to be comfortably studying and pass because the environment is friendly? That's one example of the school climate. So if you read around that area, you'll be able to tell what's the relationship between the school climate. Climate, of course, is the conditions within the school that enable learners' achievement. Unit 3, fundamental conflict and dysfunctional conflict. What is the difference between those two? Approach of dealing with conflict. What are those things that you must do to deal with conflict in any organizations? You must read and find out what are those approaches that you must do to enable you to deal with conflict. We are moving on to Unit 4. The psychological reason for resistance to change. What are those psychological reasons that can lead to resistance to change in an organization? If a change is coming in, they say the psychological, that means that's a mental belief that makes you to feel, no, I can't take that change because it's bringing this negativity or it's bringing this threat into my life. You must read around that area and you acquaint yourself what are those reasons why people resist to those changes. The systematic steps to manage change. What are those systematic steps that you must do to manage those changes within any organization? Then we move to Unit 5. We look at the stress. This is a general term which entails a lot of things. Of course, in the first place, you must be able to define what is stress. And there are different types of stress that you must also be able to know. For example, health, stress, etc. And there are also different causes of stress in schools. They call it stressors in schools. Read around those areas and you know what are those stressors. And there are also internal stressors. You read around those topics and then you know what are those stressors. If a question comes, what are the internal causes of stress? Or what are the stressors in schools? For example, in schools, some of the stressors can be teacher-learner ratios. Some of those can also, if classes are overcrowded, then teachers are stressed because they cannot manage those group of learners. That's very clear. We move to Unit 6. Unit 6, the functional and management functions of educators. What are those functional management functions and what are those functional and management functions of educators? Functional, that means the day-to-day activities that are happening in schools. For example, teaching, learning, and management functions. As educators, what are your duty to make sure that the teaching is taking place, the learning is taking place, the resources and everyone in the school is managed well? You must read around that topic, then you know what are those functions that educator must play. Manager and leadership tasks in schools. What are the managers and leadership tasks in schools? One of them is planning. You must be able to plan well. Plan in terms of resources, plan in terms of enrollment, plan in terms of supervision and all those things. You must read around that. And any question that comes from that, whether to explain, to discuss, or whatever nature of the question that comes around that area, you must be able to address it. Because examination shouldn't be something that you stress you. As long as you read, you'll be able to find everything easier if you read around those topics. Any question that comes, don't expect the tutor to give you the questions, of course. You must be able to read and say, okay, now I know everything in this area. Any nature of the question that comes from this area, I'm able to answer it because I know everything here. Whichever nature of the question that comes from this, I can address it. We are moving to Unit 7. Hope we are making progress and you are following very well. The principles involved in planning. Principles involved in planning. What are those principles? Before you plan, you must meet certain requirements that we call principles. What are those principles that you must have when you are doing planning? And of course, you meet challenges. What are those barriers that can prevent you from effective planning? The relationship between policy, procedure, and rules. Of course, you must be able to tell the relationship between those policy, procedures, and rules. One of the examples of the policy, for example, in education sector, is Education Act. And the rules are extracted from that. Procedure is the ways how you implement them. Very simple. Unit 8, we are about to finish. Unit 8, the importance of good problem solving and decision making skills. The importance of good problem solving and decision making skills. What are those important skills that you must have when you are solving those problems that arise in your schools or in your organizations? And when you are making decisions, of course, decisions are not easier to make, but you should have certain skills that enable you to make those decisions. And why those skills are very important to have them. Of course, there are many. I wouldn't give one, but as you read, you will get one. Principle involved in problem solving and decision making. Before you decide on what to do, or if a problem erupts, before you decide I'm going to deal with it, you must follow certain principle. For example, address the situation calmly. And before you make any decision, do you have all the evidence, all the information that can make you not to make wrong decisions? Read around that area, then you find out what are those principles. Steps involved in problem solving and decision making. You must take certain steps before you make any decision and before you solve any problem. Don't rush to solve problems. You must follow certain logical ways of doing things. For example, take those steps. And when you read, you find that there are certain steps that you must take when you are making decisions and before you solve any problems. The relationship between problem solving and decision making. You must find what is connecting the decision making and the problem solving. What are those things that are linking those two? And what are those barriers that prevent you to make those decisions and prevent you to solve those problems? And how can you overcome those barriers that can prevent you to solve your problem and make your right and correct decisions? Read, study, and find out what are those. Remember, this is just to guide you on how to study this module. and make your work easier. Unit 9, we are moving ahead. The basic principles of organizing. What are those principles of organizing? One of them is leading, controlling. There are many, you list them. Then you tell what are they in detail. You must tell what is controlling, what is leading, etc., etc. The relationship of authority, power, responsibility, and accountability with delegating. What is connecting authority, power, responsibility, and accountability when it comes to delegating or delegation? Tell, read, and tell what's that connectivity between those four. Principles of effective coordinating and barriers. Tell also how can you effectively coordinate? What are those principles that can help you to become effective coordinators? And what are those problems that can come your way, the barriers that can hinder you from effectively coordinate your tasks? Importance of controlling as a management function. Why is control a very important management function? You must be able to tell, either to discuss, either to explain, or either to elaborate, or any way the question can come. You must be able to tell. Whichever way the question might be formed around that area, you must be able to address it. Principles and guidelines of effective control in schools. What are those principles that you must, and guidelines that you must follow to effectively control your school day-to-day running? We are moving to the final topic, which is Unit 10. We look at leadership and management. We look around, what is the difference between leadership and management? And the ability of effective educational leaders. What are those abilities? Those are the skills knowledge and skills that enable you to effectively do your work as an educational leader, to run the school and to control it, to make sure that teaching and learning is taking place, of course. Then look at motivation, element of motivation and theories of motivation. Read around what motivation entails. What are those elements that is involved in motivation? What are those theories of motivation? For example, the theory of X and Y, or other theories that are talking about motivation, Hembeck and others. So you must be able to tell what are they talking about, how to motivate your subordinate, how to motivate your employees, and how to motivate people within your organization, etc., etc. So good luck for your examination, and may read. Make sure that examination is not a quiz, it's a test of knowledge and understanding. Read, and when you come to exam, make sure that you are just tested of what you have studied, and it's not a quiz. Thank you for your attention, and my email address is also there, dimbangula@gmail.com. If you have something that you want to query and maybe you don't have credit, but you can be able to email, feel free to email and I can respond to you. So all the best in your exam, and I hope you make it. Thank you.